I can't take it no more. I can't take it no more. Can't take it no more. Imagine 18 hours of blackout, and you're telling people progress. Cost of living gone up 100%, yet you give public servant less. Mr. President, listen to the people. Search your soul and you will confess. I want you try surviving on the public base, then you're gonna know but stress. Cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. You're hiding corruption inside the cup, look how evil set up. The people fed up. They don't drive no fair with the citizen. They may want the people speak out. Freedom of speech done gone inside the gutter. Knock off when you open your mouth. Discrimination in entertainment, and you're talking about one Guyana. When the Ministry of Culture keep the big shows, one set to girls and banner. Cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. You're hiding corruption inside the cup, look how evil set up. The people fed up.
PPP will take care of you from erection to resurrection.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Again, happy Easter to everyone. I know that today is Easter Monday in Guyana, and most are out enjoying the festivities, but nevertheless, the fight continues. So please go ahead, share the link, like the program, share the link, like the program. This is Straight Up. A pleasant good evening again to everyone. This is Straight Up. Please share the link, like the program. Our regular anchor, Mr. Mark Anthony Benchcop, is a bit busy. So tonight, you guys will get a little bit of Wayne Caesar. And I do have a guest here this evening. I want to just send out a quick apologies. We had some difficulties yesterday and couldn't get the program. But I want to apologize to you guys. Nevertheless, I am here this evening. Okay, good evening to each and every one of you. I hope that you are keeping well. Please go ahead, share the link, like the program. This is Straight Up on Bench Up Radio 107.1 FM. It is Monday, the 6th day of April. It is Easter Monday. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'll be bringing in Dr. Adams very, very shortly. He will be in, and we shall get started. Look, we're gonna be discussing a little bit about our patrimony in Guyana here, right? We're gonna talk a little bit of oil and gas, but I really want you guys to pay really. I know you guys always pay attention, but pay key attention this evening. Pay key attention this evening. This is coming on the backdrop of what the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador, would have spoken about with regards to renegotiating, all right, the oil contract. All right, we're going to discuss that this evening. I did touch on it on Saturday, just quickly, high level, and we were just doing basic, contract law, right? It was basic. We didn't come and bring in all the details, the scope and all of that. So tonight, we're going to go a little bit into the scope. We're going to discuss the scope of the contract, right? And you guys will be edified. Dr. Adams, a pleasant good evening to you. And I thank you so much for taking the time to come on. Good evening. Welcome to Straight Up.
Hey, thanks, Wayne, and glad to be here. And again, welcome to your wonderful listeners in Guyana and all over the rest of the world. Hey, we should have been in Guyana. Today is Easter Monday. kite
Correct.
flying and everything else,
Correct.
partying tonight. So, but glad to be here.
Yes, I'm very, very jealous of everyone on the ground there, um, in Guyana. Very, very, very jealous of them. But nevertheless, Dr. Adams, tonight, we're gonna do a little bit of oil and gas, on the backdrop of what the ambassador, Nicole Terriot, would have said, right?
Yeah.
She made an argument that, and the argument basically rests on kind of like the investment protection doctrine, where she said renegotiation of a signed contract undermines the trust, in a host country, and it's not a good thing. Basically, just to summarize it, it's not a good thing. And then you fired back, and it was an excellent written piece. You fired back on Village Voice. I didn't get that before I went on Saturday, but you fired back on Village Voice, and specifically you spoke of Article 32, Clause 32 of the contract. So can you go in? Can you start digging in so that our viewers can be edified as to really what is happening?
For sure. And let me say, I listen. I don't think I haven't met the ambassador,
Okay.
and I'm sure the ambassador means well. The ambassador's um, role is to represent United States companies. As a matter of fact, I was in that role not as an lowercase a for ambassador, but I represented the United States abroad, and you always look out for the interests of the United States, and but you expect that the companies that you're representing abroad would operate in a in a manner of high integrity and fairness to other countries. So the ambassador is not doing anything outside of her role, except that I disagree with her, and I'm not sure if of course, she is not. She's new to Guyana, and I don't think that she's aware of all of the history behind the contract, etc. But so let me get to it. And as you know, from day one, the contract has always been an issue. I don't think a day passes and it's not questioned. It's not only questioned by people in Guyana; it's questioned by a lot of exports in the international community. And the only way you can describe the contract is lopsided. And I dare even Exxon to say that it's not lopsided in good conscience. Um, in terms of renegotiation, and it's amazing to see this government. This is the same government, folks, and you all can remember when they were in opposition, they lambasted the then current government, which was the new AFC government. Oh, they bashed them. I remember Jaggo is on video in his red attire, his PPP attire, his party's attire, shouting from the rooftop that APNU AFC has sold out the patrimony of Guyana. They have, and every Guyanese are sad. Those are his words. Every Guyanese is sad at every discovery. That's what he said. He can't hide from that. He's on video. And as soon as they get into office, they will renegotiate the contract. There's no if. He said that. Mr. Ali said the same thing. And even after Mr. Ali or Dr. Ali got into office as president, the famous interview, he's also on video. He had an interview with Guyanese critics, and critics asked him a direct question: will you renegotiate the contract? So it wasn't a matter of misinterpretation. He said yes, everything is on the table. We will renegotiate the contract. Mr. Nandalal, the Attorney General, said, to paraphrase him, it's the worst contract ever. So the three, at least close to the top brass of the party, they all said that they will negotiate. But what happened as soon as they got into office, they started, and by the way, they even put that in their 2020 manifesto. It's in the 2020 manifesto that they will renegotiate the contract. As soon as they got into office, they, for whatever reason, they reneged on it. And when they started being questioned, they come up with this flimsy excuse of sanctity of contract. We can negotiate. And which is saying the same thing that the ambassador is saying. It sends a bad signal, etc. Well, didn't they know about the sanctity of contract when they were bashing the that new MP when they were in office? But it shows the hypocrisy and the disingenuousness. It just like if it was a line for the elections in going back since 2020. So, and on top of that, right now the contract without any renegotiation, there are several clauses that are being broken in the contract.
Correct.
For example, the auditing. The contract says you've got to audit every one of these projects within 2 years of the project being approved. Until now, well, of course, we know.
Dr. Adams, stick
Yeah.
up in there. When you say audit each of the each of the projects, are you by accounting standards is saying that ExxonMobil for each of these projects should be producing an income statement
Well,
or some kind of
well, no, it's that's even that's the next level. But what I'm going to as to how they're breaking the contract, but what you're saying, I'm going to get to that because that's very, very important.
okay,
They're supposed to audit these projects 2 years. That's what the contract says. 2 years after when we started producing, when in 2019, right? What
right?
is it?
Yes, yes, late 2019. Yeah.
So yeah, I remember it's December, I think the 24th or sometime.
Mm-hmm.
So, which means that 6 years plus we've, I don't know how many artists we've done. We know about the one with the $214 million fiasco.
Right.
And then there's supposed to be, I think, two others that they're hiding. They said that the audits are complete. So why are they hiding the information? Even the 214 million, you remember, they were hiding that because that audit was done in 2021. So they were hiding it for years until it got leaked. Or else they're not sharing information. And this is the people's project. This is not the PPP, and people have to know this. Nothing here belongs to the PPP. This is the people project, and the oil belongs to the people. No, here is the other thing. You know what you get to what you've gotten at the Wayne, in terms of submitting financial reports. Now, for each project, there's something called a field development plan. Every project, and that has to be approved before you can call it a project. So the government has to approve it. The government goes out and get consultants to review. It's a heavy technical document that has all the technical details. It has the production profile over time. Every year, this is what the production data. It has the financial data, how much cost is going to come out for decommissioning. It has all the details. So now, in terms of tracking the progress, every quarter Exxon submits a report to the government that has all of the financials, how much money they spent, how much, what is our profit. They show the entire breakdown of everything. Well, guess what? The government again is hiding those financial reports from the people. It has reserve. It should have reserve. Every well that is discovered, it's reporting on the progress of what's in the field development plan, and it's also reporting on the spending and the profit, how much money came in, etc. The government, the people should be pressuring this government to release those reports. Those reports belong to the people. Stop hiding information. So now we've got to, people like myself, we've got to go there and guess. And it's only when they get caught that you put them on the spot when they're forced to release certain parts of the information. But those, what you
Doc,
have
doc,
is key piece of information: the field development plan and the financial report.
Dr. Adams, stick a pin there. I'm gonna go right back to you, ladies and gentlemen. Essentially, when Dr. Adams is speaking of financial report, he's speaking about a full set of financial reports. That means you should be having an income statement, a statement of comprehensive income, statement of, and they can provide statement of cash flow also, right? And the balance sheet. And also, they must have notes accompanying the financial statements indicating what method of accounting was used. And all of these different things have to be reported. So that's essentially what Dr. Adams is saying to you when he speak of financial reports. And that is needed. And the reports by itself, you can look at it, you can analyze it. But in order to be able to read the reports 100%, you need to have the notes to the financial statements, because that is what gives you the accounting methods that are used. Therefore, you're able to comprehensively read the reports. Dr. Adams, you can continue.
Yes, and you know what's interesting? And of course, Exxon hides behind those reports, because every time you go and you ask Exxon, okay, what is your updated resource? Exxon said, well, okay, we submit our quarterly reports. Ask your government. When you go to the government, they come with all kinds of stuff to distract and do not answer the question. I don't know if they're able to read the reports, or if they read the reports and don't understand it because of the incompetence. But for whatever reason, they're not releasing the reports. As a matter of fact, I remember in terms of the reserves, by the way, those reserves belong to us. Those reserves is the Guyanese bank account. That's the way I like to address it. It's your bank account below the ground. Every single drop of barrel, that is your bank account. But what this government is doing is making you feel as if here is your bank account and you do not even know how much is in your bank account. Here they're telling you you've got 11 billion barrels of oil, and we all know it's much more than 11 billions, but they don't want to tell us how much how much the Guyanese people have in their bank account. And so they hide every single thing. And but Exxon, every time you go to Exxon say, well, okay, why are you asking me? And they're right. The people
But
have
Dr. Adams, Dr.
don't
Adams,
Exxon. So when Exxon say ask the government, they're absolutely correct, except that the government just hide information from the people who own the oil.
but Dr. Adams, in explaining the initial PSA, right? In explaining that, when that was signed, and yes, I agree with you that it is lopsided, right? But one thing that needs to be taken into consideration, because a lot of people talk about the contract being bad, and I agree, it is a bad contract. But initially, Dr. Adams, upon signing of the PSA for the Starbrook block specifically, we did not know how much we had in reserve. And I believe that that plays a role, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And before I get to that part of it, which is justification for renegotiation. But anyway, the first contract was signed in 1990. And folks, listen to this very carefully, because I know that Mr. Jagdio especially and others come out all the time and bashes the APNU AFC government for signing a lopsided contract. They come in and say, well, their hands are tied. But here's the facts. It's the same, and these conditions were put in there. Is the AFC the APNU AFC put those conditions in there, and it was stupid. And the AFC APNU sold out the country with these conditions. Well, folks, the very first contract was signed in 1999 by President Janet J.
Mm-hmm.
with the same exact conditions. But let me go further. 6 other contracts were signed by the PPP government from 1999 through 2015. So the PPP signed 7 contracts for the Kanji block and all of these other blocks, Kaichor and all those other blocks. 7 of those contracts were signed by the PPP government with the exact same clause. So all of these bad clauses were the invention of the PPP, not APNU AFC. As a matter of fact, APNU AFC, when they with this 2016 contract, the mistake, I said it. So I said it public. It was a bad contract. The AFC should not have signed that contract. But what they did, they copied what was in those 7 contracts. That was which was invented by the PPP government. So don't let them fool you and say that those language and those clauses and these bad conditions and lopsidedness was put in there by APNU. It was put in there by the PPP. As a matter of fact, the 2016 contract that was signed by APNU FC, if you want to say it was even a better contract, because the only change that was made, APNU FC increased double the royalty from 1% to 2%. But everything else came from there. Now, here's what's in the contract. We're getting back to renegotiation. And when you hear this thing about renegotiation, sanctity of contract, clause number 32 is in the contract that says that you can renegotiate the contract as long as you get the 2 parties to agree to it. Well, so if there's a provision there for renegotiation. So when you hear people say, well, we can't renegotiate because of the sanctity, that in itself is sanctity of the contract to request a negotiation. It says there. So if you ask for renegotiation, you're following the sanctity of the contract. So don't come and tell me, well, we can't renegotiate because of sanctity of contract. That's nonsense. It's sanctity. It's in the contract itself. There's a reason why it's there, because contracts are renegotiated every single day on the planet. And Exxon knows it. Exxon, they belong to the United States. I worked almost my entire career was in the United States and worked at the very highest level of the United States government. And those is the Exxons of the world that we manage. And we get contract changes all the time. So clause 32. But Jagdi, with all the big mouth that the vice president and everybody got, as soon as we get into office, we're going to renegotiate. Well, the only way you can start a renegotiation is by requesting one from Exxon. You can sit back and say, well, I am not going to renegotiate. The contract is go.
But Dr. Adams, in written form, they have to write to them.
Write to them. And when people like myself attack them, I know it's in writing in the public media. I even call him a coward. And that's what it is. He very cowardly, did not, with all the big mouth that he has, he abused down everybody every day, every Thursday. And he is scared to even put it on paper that he wants to send it to Exxon to say, Exxon, I would like to renegotiate the contract. So he's not even asking. He's afraid to even ask them to renegotiate the contract. And let me tell you something here. And here is why Exxon, everybody blames Exxon, but I don't blame Exxon, because all companies are going to do what the government allows them to do. And here's a good example. When the when the APNU AFC government was in office and I was head of the Environmental Protection Agency, that contract, I even went, even without not even touching the contract, we at the EPA, when I was there, told Exxon that you will not produce a barrel of oil until we get a parent company guarantee to cover an oil spill. And let me tell people what that means. In the contract says that the company operating is could be self-insured. Folks, listen to this carefully. The big boy Exxon name is not on any document. It's not in a contract. It's not in any permit. Nothing. The operator, what Exxon did, Exxon formed what I call a child company or a subsidiary that has no assets. none, to come and run, or operate. So the contract says that the operator shall be responsible for an oil spill, which is the oil spill in the Gulf, as you recall,
Mm-hmm.
and cost 145 billion US dollars.
To clean up, correct.
Our budget right now is 5 billion, so it's many was it 30 times more than our budget. So that would bankrupt not only Guyana but the rest of the Caribbean, that the oil will wash away. But anyway, so that's the contract. So so when they came to the EPA, we said, so what happens if we get an oil spill? Who's going to cover it? They said, well, the contract says that the operator doesn't have any assets. So that is why we demanded that the parent company, the big boy, and that's why they formed these subsidiaries, by the way, the limited liability company by definition, is to insulate themselves from liability. That's what big companies do all the time. So we said, no, you're not going to play that game on us. You have to sign you have to be responsible for it. Exxon agreed and signed the permit saying that this is the big boy Exxon, say that if anything happens, we Exxon, this is the parent company guarantee. So that was a case again where the contract, as far as the contract is concerned, we went ahead and got outside of the contract without even renegotiating it. The other thing was, in that contract, believe it or not, in that contract, that's our waters and our land and our oil, our wells. And in that contract, it says that the government of Guyana has to give Exxon 7 days notice to visit those ships. 7 days notice we've got to give them. And what we told them at EPA, absolutely not. We will have unfettered access up to and including unannounced visit anytime we want to go. Even though that's in the contract, that's what they have to agree to us to do. So don't come and tell me you can't renegotiate this contract. We made those changes even without even renegotiating the contract. So guess what? When we left office, they reversed everything. And you remember the big lawsuit that the government, you remember they reversed everything with Exxon?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Lawsuit, and Judge Samuel Kissoon said that the government basically sold out to his exact words were that the government, it is derelict, pliant, and submissive to Exxon. And he said Exxon is only allowed to do what the government is allowing them to do, which is exactly what I'm saying. So it's not that Exxon is a bad company. Exxon is doing what they're doing,
in their best interest. They're working in their best interest.
To their shareholders. But our government are even going against us because our government has joined Exxon now because Exxon lost the lawsuit. Our government went all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice to join Exxon in appealing the case against its own people. So the government, the government of Guyana, listen to this again. The government of Guyana joined with Exxon to appeal the case against its own people. And they had an opportunity to at least save face and say, well, okay, we lost. Exxon lost the case. No, but they went all the way to the CCJ to be allowed to join Exxon again. So right now, folks, they say that we have a 2 billion coverage somehow, but they can't show us the 2 billion. But even if you have a 2 billion, if you've got a major spill like the Macondo, who pays for that? Guyana will be bankrupt and a big environmental catastrophe. So is the rest of the Caribbean. Who pays the money over the $2 billion if you so have it, even if the 2 billion exists? Who will pay that money? Nobody. There's the government of Guyana who would be responsible to clean up the mess and everything else. So we've got a government that's the kind of government that we have.
But Dr. Adams, right now the deal that we have is a parent company deal, right?
Which deal?
As far as insurance goes.
No, everything. What they did,
still under
what they did, but they can't show us. No. We had the parent company.
So you're
Exxon
telling me that
again,
we have a you're telling me that right now it's a subsidiary that
yeah, they went out, they claim that they have the $2 billion, right, in insurance. Well, but they still can't show us, because you remember that when, I can't remember who called the bluff. I think it was Kaicho News called the bluff. They said, okay, we're going to show you the thing. The Kaicho News went down to the EPA, and when they went down to the EPA, they say you got to go to court for you to show it. So they're claiming that they got some kind of certificate or policy for this $2 billion. We don't know. But what I'm saying, it's no, that's not the parent company. That is the operator. We had the parent company. So Exxon, again, is scot-free. But here's the other silliness that, or con game. The vice president always comes out, well, we're going to seize Exxon property. Well, here's what the truth of the matter is. All of those properties and these projects belong to the government of Guyana. It says that clear in the contract again. I know that they know exactly what's in the contract. It says all fixed and all removable assets belong to the government. So if so what they're saying is that we're going to be seizing our own assets to pay for an oil spill. That is what they're saying.
But Dr. Adams, even to take it a bit further, if you take all the assets that we speak about and we aggregate it, it is still not even close to enough to cover for oil spill. Well, we should have had in place a parent company agreement, because you would know, Dr. Adams, that these subsidiaries that are typically shell companies, they don't own any assets. They don't really report any assets. So they don't have the wherewithal to cover for an oil spill. Let me
give you an example. And we got a typical case, an exact case in Nigeria. The people of Nigeria sued Shell, I think it was Shell, for major oil spills. They decided the case got tried in England. Do you know what was Shell's defense? You want to hear what was Shell's defense? It wasn't me. It was my subsidiary. You see where it turns back?
Yes.
Shell said, oh, it wasn't me. It was my subsidiary. So they're the ones responsible, not me. So that's a typical example as to what we're dealing with here. And again, this here is not about even Exxon, because Exxon is doing which is what a normal business does. They're going to do whatever it is to get away with whatever they get. How come they weren't getting away? How come Exxon was cooperating with the previous government at New AFC? But with this government, as soon as this government left, it was a right about turn. It shows that what has happened here is the change in government. Exxon was going to abide and be reasonable with the previous government, but this here is a case where the old saying, you catch a paku, you bust it back and put more salt in it. They're not only putting salt, they're putting pepper in it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, just to summarize, okay, renegotiation, okay, it is restricted but not prohibited. Hence the reason for clause 32. All right. So when you look at that, Dr. Adams, it is easy to say that the current incompetent government of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana is not working in the best interest of the nation and its people.
Absolutely not. And this here is not even about politics. The record, the performance record is there and everything. And this here is just the tip of the iceberg, because they're dumping toxic, hot produced water, oily water into the ocean instead of re-injecting, flaring gas instead of re-injecting. But here's the other part. Through greed, this government is allowing them to produce above the safe operating limit in the law. The environmental impact assessment, which does a thorough study, technical study to say here, based on the systems that we have, the size of pipe, the pipe material, the valves, based on that physical system, this here is your safe operating limit. Do not go above this limit, or a bad thing can happen. You can have an explosion, etc. They are operating over 40, 50% above that limit, which means that they're risking an oil spill, while at the same time, they have no liability to cover an oil spill. And Exxon would walk free, and Guyana would be in trouble because the Exxon subsidy had no assets to cover it. That's the dilemma we're in. So they're going big, fat, and happy and boasting, bragging. By the way, even the government of Guyana is bragging how much they're producing above the safe operating limit. They're bragging about it, but they're putting the country at risk. And we may have to lose every single penny if something happens. All the money we made and get into trouble. Here's another part where they violated the contract barefacedly. The energy project, the biggest project we're gonna have in Guyana, which is now gonna get close to $3 billion. It's tripled since this new government took over. In that gas, the energy, what it says in the contract in plain language at Article 12 in that contract. You know what it says, Wayne, and our audience? It says that for any use of the gas, thou shall have to do a feasibility study. There's no feasibility study done. So that is why we're running into problems. The soil conditions are bad. We're finding things that is normally found in a feasibility study. A feasibility study would have seen all of those issues, and we would not have been wasting. We just had a lawsuit here, which was the government has to pay they settled for $82 million US, and there's probably more to come. But if they violated, so they're talking about sanctity of contract. It's in the contract to say, thou shalt have to do a feasibility study for any gas that is used from that project offshore. They did not even do an environmental impact assessment for the most high-risk environmental project that the Guyana has ever seen. No environmental impact assessment, even though they themselves, when they were doing the environmental impact assessment for the pipeline that is going to be bringing the gas, when the question was asked, well, I don't see anything here about the gas, the energy, the plant itself that is going to be converting the gas and everything to energy. I don't see an EIA for that. Guess what the answer was? In the EIA for the pipeline, it says, no, we're not going to do it in the EIA for the pipeline because there's going to be a separate EIA for the gas, the energy plant. It's in the EIA of the pipeline. They haven't done that. Like I said, they violated their own contract at clause number 12 to say you must do a feasibility study. So guess what? They're wasting all of those billions of dollars. The cost tripled. They just have lost this case with the 82 million. And they were planning to hide that also. That case, they said that case was done, but we only heard about it just a few days ago. So that is what's going on here with this government.
Well, Dr. Adams, I always had the concern, and it's still a massive concern of mine, that we are not well represented in the oil and gas sector. But I was really owning in and analyzing this back and forth, this debate between you and the ambassador. And what I recognize is that this debate goes beyond Exxon or the PSA. It kind of shapes the future of bargaining power. It kind of set precedents as to how natural resource contracts will evolve in the future, how this goes, because it appears as if we as a nation, is stuck. Exxon is working rationally in its own interest.
That's right.
The real question is whether the Guyanese state is doing the same for its people, right?
Yep.
And Dr. Adams, when we talk about renegotiation also, conditions, changing conditions, right? Before we didn't know what we had. When we were going into this thing, we didn't know what our reserves would have looked like. But I believe now it's about 11 billion barrels, right? Isn't it not?
Well, that's what they're saying.
Right.
There's all kinds
So
of
that
evidence.
there alone,
Well,
that there alone
yes, but
provides, terms for
there is a
negotiation. It's a change,
there is a
massive
universal
change.
there's a universal condition for change for renegotiating contract,
There you
and it
go.
is called change conditions. So
Correct.
here's another thing that Exxon, I know they probably know about this also. In most of the contracts that 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 we deal with in the US, in the government contracts, we would normally set up what is called, it's so common, change conditions is so common that we would normally set up what is called a change control board. Because if a contractor goes in there and they find something that they didn't expect, like this change, like the soil condition, for example, you don't do feasibility study, but when they go in, they say, well, you know what? My contract, I didn't price anything for soft soil or in a swampy area. And then they would bring that request, the contractor would bring that request to the change control board, and it will look at it, and as long as it's reasonable, they would negotiate a price rate. So change condition is a normal way. It happens every single day. So here it is in this case, they didn't know how much was in the reservoir. First, when they started, I think the first thing came out, it was 1 or 2 or 3 billion. I think it was 3 billion. That was the initial thing, the reserves. And then suddenly it climbed to 11 billion, almost quadruple. And we know that there is more
Of
because a lot of
course.
people. So even if we take the 11 billion, it quadrupled. That in itself is a change condition. And was reason look, I have had to deal with this contract. That was part of my responsibility in my departments. And we dealt with contract every single day, and change condition is a normal thing, and that is a change condition. But but the thing is, here's the other thing. Well, it's not an other thing. I think it's a clear case where this government is incompetent, and they know that they're incompetent, and they're allowing Exxon, and Exxon knows that they're incompetent, so Exxon is taking advantage of them, and they don't want to bring in. Look, I always say, in the diaspora, the government could find any expertise in the diaspora to match up with any company, including Exxon. But they don't want that. The government of Ghana does not want that. Exxon does not want that. For example, when I was at the EPA, we decided to, because we know that we were short in competence level. We didn't have like a petroleum engineer. I used to be doing in terms of I used to be
Multiple hats.
managing.
You wear multiple hats.
That's exactly correct. So what we did in an urgent manner, we went to the World Bank and obtained $1 million from the World Bank to bring in an export from Mexico to help me and Dr. Bino at the Department of Energy and some other. We set up a special petroleum unit at the EPA, 36-member unit, high-powered people, highly specialized skill in petroleum engineering and geological engineering and those type of things, to be on the ships 24/7. So Exxon can't BS anybody. You know what happened? In that case, we would not have even had a need for any audits because the people are there. They're verifying that the meters and everything are running. You know what they did? This is another egregious
But
thing.
Dr. Adams, could you stick up in there? Because I have a question here from Miss Hazel Johnson, and I think she's going down the same road that you're going down now. I always wanted to know about these meters and who really watch these meters, because when you're hearing 900,000 barrels is being extracted a day, and then you're hearing some people are saying, hey man, it's not no 900,000 barrels, it's like 1.1 million and all this type of stuff. Who on the side of the nation, the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, looks at those meters and monitors them? I believe this is the question that Miss Hazel Johnson.
And now it ties in, because what I'm saying is we would have had to start with a 36-member, high-powered, highly technical group of people in petroleum engineering and everything else on board the ship, to monitor what is going on, to make sure, get into the meter directly, because that's where the tire meets the road. The most important piece is that meter, to make sure that meter is running and calibrated properly. So, and let me dispel something here. this whole call for an independent meter has nothing to do with an independent meter. All the meters is the same. Okay, it's all you've got to do is to make sure you have people on board to make sure that that meter is running properly and it's properly calibrated. And we've got a lot of people, electricians, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, to make sure that that meter is running properly. We should have somebody there 24/7. Do you know, even in the audit, listen to this. This is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. Even in the audit, the auditing company were not allowed to see the meter. In the audit, they were not given the production rate, etc. So what the government is claiming, that they've got people there watching the meters. Nobody know how much, if they're there 24/7, but apparently it's when they're doing a lift. Apparently, that's, you gotta be there all the time. And but again, this government is not interested. If they're not interested in competence, okay, this here is, they're allowing, and Exxon does not want anybody with competence to look over their shoulder. And that's not only in Guyana, even in the US. Even in the US, they don't take kindly to us having oversight bodies, but they have to live with it, because when we say jump, they say how high. In the Guyana, is the reverse. They're telling our officials how high to jump, and we want to jump even higher.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would like to know what those audit reports look like, because those should be disclaimers, right? Didn't have enough access. Didn't have enough access to the relevant information.
But here's the other incompetence. In no audit, in every audit, and again, Exxon knows how audits are conducted. What the Guyana government does, they go and they hire whoever audit company that they, I don't know, there's some questions as to how they decide on an audit company. Anyway, they hire an audit company. They lose that audit company while to do the audit with Exxon. That's not the way you do audit. The government is always in charge of an audit. The contractor that you hire has Exxon has no obligation to take instructions for them to see anything. That is why Exxon could refuse them to go see the meter or anything. The government, when we do audits in the US, we always have a government official is with the team, the audit team, not only one official, because in the first day you have a meeting, the government, the lead portion of the audit, which is the government official, you got the three teams there. You got a government official, you got the Exxon official, as you will, and you've got, if there's a contractor that the government hired, they're all there. And then you split up into teams. In export, you got the export team. You got a team that's going to be looking at the financial books. You've got a team that's going to be looking at meters and the technical part of it, etc. And they close every single day, at the end of every day, you come back together and you identify to the whole team what the issues are, and if there's some explanation to do or misunderstanding, and you've got to go back and check it to verify, you go back the next day. But at the end of the audit, at the last day of that audit, everybody knows what the audit says, what the issues are, what the deficiencies are, and we always make sure there's always a section for strength, and of course the weaknesses and what needs to be fixed, etc. We had an audit for what? How many? That audit was done in 2021. We didn't hear it until 2024 or sometime. They hid, but in any case, the audit was conducted, in an ineffective manner. The government has to run that audit, to run not some contractor. The contractor has no authority to enter that ship and tell Exxon what to do. That's why Exxon say, "Who the heck is you? I'm not going to listen to you." The government has to be there, but but those are the kinds of things we do not understand how to do these type of critical activities.
Right. So therefore, we don't get an accurate run on how Exxon does their internal controls.
Yeah.
Right. That is very, very sad. Very, very sad. Ms. Hazel Johnson is asking, how can we fix these issues? Well, I tell you something. One of the ways to fix it is with the citizens of Guyana to come out and just decide that they're shutting down everything until it is fixed. I mean, I I believe that, time for talking it's over with this type of stuff. That's a patrimony that belongs to all Guyanese, to just have some high level officials just making a mess of everything, mismanaging everything. Right. And Dr. Adams, I know we're looking at time here, but I would have loved to jump into the interior quick because there's a lot of gold smuggling going on there. But we could hit that on another program. But we have 5 minutes in your closing. I just want you to just talk a little bit about the cricketer, Kevin Sinclair, since you are a former opening batsman for Guyana and would have played the game. I believe that you would be able to
Yeah, but quick, yeah, I'm gonna do. But let me say this in terms of Guyana and this oil and gas again, folks. You need to, and I'll follow up on that question. This all belongs to you. There is no reason why. What is it? The poverty rate in Guyana should be 58%, and then you have that 1% that are filthy rich and getting filthy rich every single day. There's no reason why Guyana should have the highest malnutrition rate of kids in the whole region, even even worse than Haiti. None at all. So it's our oil. It, like I said, the oil is the Guyanese people's bank account. You need to put pressure, however, to make sure that you know what is in your bank account. But anyway, in terms of the Sinclair issue, listen, and this here is not anything new. You're gonna always find players, who they're very competitive, and in the heat of the moment on the field, things can happen. I have had to deal with some folks. I used to be a captain, one of the big clubs in Guyana. But you gotta deal with these things. This isn't expected. No, I'm not. When the story came out, and then even Mr. Sinclair himself came out and he basically admitted, well, he shouldn't have done what he did. But is there an approach? And the first question that needs to be answered is, because even if you go to court or you have an investigation in there, the first question they're gonna ask you, did you have a disciplinary action as part, protocol as part of the Guyana Cricket Board of Control constitution? That should have been a must, because in every employment, every place you work, it has a disciplinary protocol. And then the second question was, did you follow that protocol? And it's obvious based on what I've been getting, that was not followed. You've got Mr. Sarwan, whatever position he holds, but the Constitution says that there is supposed to be a disciplinary committee. And then on top of that, so even if he's disciplined, because like I said, a lot of, and folks you need to work with these young guys. And I'm not condoning what he did. And even if it deserves a suspension, and you tell him that because of this he's suspended, you need to work with him now, because even when you go to prison, even in prison not intended to really punish you or to take away your freedom, is to make sure that you don't do it again. It's a rehabilitation process. So what have they done to let this kid understand, hey, something, you've got a great career ahead of you, and get, even if it's a psychologist or whoever it is, get some profession to work with him to correct his mistakes. But that is the process I have a problem with. If he has done something wrong, then it needs to come out through a process. And in your constitution, that's the reason why you have something in your constitution that says there has to be a disciplinary committee. But
Dr. Adams, Dr. Adams, I wanna ask you, while you on that, I wanna ask you this. Why now the suspension? When did these issues occur, and why now the suspension at the time for the local season? Why now?
Well, what the facts are coming out that this here is not the first time. Okay, he was removed. As a matter of fact, he was, I think it was, when was it, 2020? It was some time back. So it's some other things are coming out, right? Where he had a problem with the players, and things are coming out. And hey, he's not a forced person. My point is, I've played with some players. Again, you get there. Some people get much more their emotions. They wear on their short sleeve, and especially in a competitive environment. So he's not a forced person. But I know for a fact, and I have been involved in working with players of that nature, and they change. But you've got to show leadership. You just can't say, "Hey, you know what? I'm done with you," or to treat him, with disrespect. You go and talk to him and mentor him or whatever it takes. Apparently, he had some issues before, but again, what did they do when it started? You got to nip those things in the bud early. So let
Early.
me say you had a force mishap. He had an issue for immediately. You need to identify that. But then let me tell you something. The Guyana Cricket Board is run similar to the government of Guyana. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
that's where they're taking their cue from. What there's the government of Ghana that sets the culture. Look, like here, and this is not. I don't think that in this case is a racial issue. But let me tell you what the government of Ghana is, and I've written about this too. I think there are nine. There are nine board members of the government of Guyana, and 8 out of those 9 are East Indians. 8. If you recall, before the elections, the president of the Ghana Cricket Board of Control came out and endorsed the PPP. And when I wrote about it publicly, Mr. Nandalal came out and said, "Oh, it's okay. He has a right." Well, he has a right when he talking for himself, but he doesn't have a right to endorse on behalf of the Ghana Cricket Board that has clubs. What happened to the predominantly black clubs, such as Martinos and the DCC and those clubs, the Linden? Then he would have there were players before the election who were basically campaigning. He had players at various PPP events wearing outfit themselves in the PPP red with the hat and the logo and everything for the PPP. But I'm not saying in this particular case, I'm not saying it's race, but I'm telling you what the culture is in terms of its lawlessness, in terms of how they're operating. And that's where they getting engaged from. There's no leadership in Guyana, and their only thing that they do is they're very biased and prejudiced. And that's what so these folks, Mr. Sarwan, from my understanding, is very close to the government. So that's where
Extremely close to the
they're
government.
taking their gauge and protection from. It is, that's what they're doing. Look, they removed Mr. Foster, who was outstanding guy. Bobis, he was on the Ghana Cricket Board representative. Bobis was doing an outstanding job. They removed him. So that's what we're dealing with. So that's what the cricket, I hope that this is not the end of his career, and they find a way to work things out.
Well, I definitely hope so. Kevin Sinclair is only 25 years old. He's not even in the middle of his career yet, So we would hope that that's not the end of his career, because that would be definitely a travesty, Dr. Adams, because that kid is very, very talented, man, extremely talented.
But at the same time, like I said, I'm not condoning. He himself has to realize, based on the information, he's got to understand this here. This is his career, and he's got to be more mature about it and do the things that he thinks. All of us, when I played cricket, we always felt that we were treated unfairly at some time or the other. I don't think you could find a single cricketer, including the great ones that played for the West Indies, where at some time they didn't feel as if they were, treated unfairly. All of us, but that's not the way you behave. As a matter of fact, use that as a motivation. Use that as a motivation by making runs and getting wickets. That's what you should allow to speak for you.
I want to ask you one question, Dr. Adams. This is going to be the final question that I'm going to pose to you. Tevin Imlach is Kevin Sinclair's captain.
Yes.
The way he spoke at the press conference, he never even called that player. What do you say to that level of captaincy, sir?
He never called the player?
Right. He never called. Look, you're the captain. If something is going wrong
Oh yeah,
among
yeah.
the
No,
boys,
no, no. But that's exactly my point. Is that, as a matter of fact, I'm in a cricket chat. There were several cricket chats, and that was one of the that was one of the things he said. Well, which is what we normally do. Like I said, I was captain of the DCC club, and I had a couple of players. But guess what I used to do? I used to discipline them, but then I would talk to them and explain to them what the situation is, and we expect them to improve. That's what he should have done. That we discussed that exact same thing today. That why didn't he approach as a captain? You know, when you're off the field, sit down, go have a beer or something, and say, listen, this year, let's this is are the expectations, etc. And what could, am I doing something as a captain that you don't like, or what is in it that is causing you to behave like this? That was never done. I totally agree with you. That should have been the first step. But and based on some other feedback, there are lots of personal stuff that goes on there.
yeah, but Dr. Adams not forgetting also that Ramnaway Shawan himself was quite a character. And you cannot forget that. You
As a matter
understand
of fact,
me? You know.
he sued. You remember he sued the CWI.
All right then.
He sued them. He
Okay
sued them
then.
and he won. I think he won. I can't remember how many millions he won, but he sued the CWI.
So he should be somewhat understanding of Kevin Sinclair, and should have stepped forward to help this youngster. To
Yep.
me, I feel, yes, he may have been wrong, but at the same time, I believe that the Guyana Cricket Board would have failed to look after this young man.
Yeah,
All right.
they should have intervened. They should have been an intervention much earlier, and yeah, and hopefully it's never too late because he's still a young man, but it's gonna take some effort on his part too. It's gonna take some effort on his part.
All right, Dr. Adams, I really want to thank you so much for coming on this evening on short notice. The viewers and listeners, they always appreciate having you on the broadcast. So thank you so
Anytime,
much.
and it was a pleasure.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, there you go. You had Dr. Vincent Adams there for you live. We have now come to the end of program time here on Straight Up. I want to thank everybody for joining this evening. And please be sure to come in tomorrow right here on 107.1 FM for another edition of Straight Up. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening. Good night. Enjoy the rest of the Easter Monday. Good night. Good night. Love you all. Good night, Dr.
Good night,
Adams.
folks.